The sun was slowly climbing over the horizon, casting a soft golden glow across the vast plains of the savannah. Birds began their morning songs, and the wind carried the faint scent of wildflowers mixed with the earthy smell of the soil. In this quiet morning, life was waking up as it did every day, but in one small corner of this enormous wilderness, a drama was quietly unfolding. A lioness was moving with an unusual urgency, her steps tense and uneven as she paced near the edge of a small human settlement. Normally, lions stayed far away from humans, keeping to the safety of their territory. But today, this lioness was not acting like the others. Her eyes, wide and full of worry, scanned the area constantly. Her ears twitched at every sound, and every muscle in her body seemed ready to spring into action, yet she didn't run. She stayed close to humans, though not too close, keeping a careful distance, almost as if she was testing whether they would understand her. The reason for her anxiety was clear to anyone who could see the ravine a few meters away. Her cub, a tiny bundle of fur barely a few months old, was trapped at the bottom. The walls of the ravine were steep and unstable, making it impossible for the little one to climb out on its own. The mother had tried to reach her baby herself, but the rocks crumbled beneath her paws, and the wind made the climb too dangerous. She had no choice but to do something she had never done before. She had to rely on humans. She moved closer to the settlement, her golden fur blending with the dry grass, her movements careful and deliberate. She stopped a few feet away from the first human she saw. It was a young man who had been walking toward the fields, carrying a small basket. He froze when he saw her, not because he was afraid, but because he had never seen a wild animal act like this. The lioness didn't roar or show aggression. Instead, she crouched slightly, lowered her head, and let out a soft, pleading growl, almost like a whisper in the wind. The sound was strange, urgent, and full of emotion. People began to notice from their homes and the nearby road. They came out slowly, keeping their distance. Everyone could see that the lioness was not there to attack. She circled the human, pawing the ground gently, then darted her gaze toward the ravine and back again. Her actions were deliberate, almost like she was pointing out where help was needed. There was no fear, no wild anger, only a clear and intense worry for her cub. Even those who had lived alongside wildlife for years were stunned. They had seen lions hunt, rest, fight, and roam, but never had they seen a lioness interact with humans in this way. The young man, though nervous, felt a strange connection to the animal. He crouched slightly, keeping his movements calm, letting her know he wasn't a threat. The lioness watched him carefully, her eyes scanning every movement, judging, waiting. She stepped a little closer, her nose twitching, as if to smell his intentions. Then she looked again toward the ravine, giving a low, trembling growl that seemed almost like a plea. The humans around began whispering to each other, unsure of what to do. They knew the cub's life was at risk, but they also knew how dangerous lions could be if provoked. The wind picked up, carrying the sounds of the morning further across the plains. A small bird took flight from a nearby bush, startling the cub, who whimpered softly from the bottom of the ravine. The lioness froze, her ears twitching, her eyes narrowing as she watched her baby struggle. Her instincts screamed at her to leap down and save the cub herself, but the terrain was too unstable and the risk was too high. She turned back toward the humans, letting out another low growl, this time longer, filled with urgency and fear. It was a sound that seemed to shake everyone present. The humans could feel the weight of her plea in their chests. The young man realized what had to be done. He slowly backed toward his home to gather supplies, motioning for the others to stay back. The lioness followed him with her eyes, pacing a short distance, her tail flicking nervously. She didn't wander away, didn't roar, didn't threaten. She simply stayed, communicating her need with every cautious step and low growl. The humans moved cautiously, understanding the gravity of the situation. They whispered to each other, sharing ideas about the best way to reach the cub without startling the mother or causing the little one to panic. Each step forward was slow, careful, deliberate. The lioness watched intently, stepping closer or further back depending on their movements. Her instincts finally tuned to every gesture. One of the volunteers, aware that the cub might be injured, gently unrolled a blanket and lowered it toward the ravine. The lioness's ears twitched, and she let out a low, approving rumble. The humans nodded to each other, silently agreeing on the plan. Slowly, a rope was lowered down, forming a safe pathway to reach the trapped cub. The lioness circled the edge, pacing a rhythm that mirrored the tension in the humans' hearts. The cub, trembling at the bottom of the ravine, let out tiny cries that echoed softly. The lioness responded immediately, letting out a deep, calming growl that seemed meant to comfort the little one and also guide the humans. Her eyes, full of hope and worry, never left her baby. She nudged a small rock carefully with her paw, demonstrating the safest route to reach the cub, almost as if she were cooperating, showing a trust that was rare and extraordinary. As the humans carefully descended toward the cub, the lioness moved slightly back, giving them space, but remaining close enough to intervene if anything went wrong. Her low, constant growls reminded everyone of the stakes involved. She was tense, her muscles coiled like springs, ready to leap to her cub's aid if needed, yet trusting the humans to do what she could not. The volunteers communicated quietly, coordinating their moves. Every action was deliberate. Every movement was measured. The lioness's gaze followed them, her eyes reflecting fear, hope, and unshakable determination. She stepped lightly, never leaving her post, making sure she stayed within sight of her cub while allowing the humans to carry out the rescue. Time seemed to stretch. The sun climbed higher, casting a warmer glow over the scene, but the lioness remained vigilant. She paced in small circles, her growls becoming soft murmurs of encouragement to her baby, and she occasionally raised her head to watch the humans, as if silently instructing them. Each moment that passed was heavy with tension and anticipation, the air charged with emotion and an unspoken understanding between humans and wild animal. A small gust of wind rustled the grass, startling the cub for a moment. The lioness tensed immediately, giving a low warning growl, her gaze scanning the surroundings. She waited, alert to every sound, every movement, every risk. She was teaching patience in the midst of fear, demonstrating trust in the humans who had stepped into her world to help. Slowly, carefully, the humans made their way closer to the cub. The lioness's growls became softer, almost soothing, a quiet encouragement that mirrored the gentle movements of the rescuers. She pawed at the ground near the ravine, signaling where it was safest to step, where the rocks were firm enough to hold weight, showing cooperation that amazed everyone present. The cub whimpered again, and the lioness pressed her nose to the edge of the ravine, letting out a long, low rumble. Her message was clear. She was watching, she was hopeful, and she trusted the humans to save her baby. Every heart around the scene beat a little faster, aware of the delicate balance between danger and hope, instinct and trust, wildness and humanity. Finally, the humans reached the bottom, nearing the cub with utmost care. The lioness stayed just at the edge, every sense on high alert, every movement precise. She let out a soft sigh, a sound that seemed like a quiet prayer for her baby, as if she were silently thanking the humans before the final, crucial step of the rescue even began. The humans had reached the edge of the ravine, every movement deliberate, every glance toward the lioness full of respect and caution. The ropes were secured, and the blankets were ready to catch the cub if needed. The young man who had first seen the lioness took a deep breath and carefully stepped down, each footfall measured, trying not to startle either the cub or the mother. The lioness watched closely, her golden eyes fixed on her cub. She let out a soft, low growl every time the rescuers paused or hesitated, as if urging them to be careful but swift. She paced lightly along the edge, her tail flicking with tension, her ears twitching at every sound. Her gaze never left the humans, yet she seemed to understand their intentions, trusting them to take the risks she could not. The cub whimpered again. Tiny cries carried up the ravine. The lioness pressed close to the edge, nudging the earth with her nose and pawing at a loose rock to show the safest path. The humans adjusted their movements based on her silent signals. It was a delicate dance between species, trust, and instinct. Finally, the young man reached the cub. The little creature was trembling, eyes wide with fear, tiny paws scrabbling at the rocky bottom. He wrapped the cub gently in the soft blanket, trying not to squeeze too tightly, while the lioness's low, encouraging growl never ceased. She stayed at the edge, moving her head closer, sniffing, and letting out soft sounds of approval when the cub was lifted safely. The ascent was slow and painstaking. Every rope movement was deliberate, every step calculated to avoid slips or sudden jerks. The lioness followed with her gaze, her body coiled with tension, ready to leap if necessary. Her growls became softer, more of a quiet encouragement, and she seemed to sense that the humans were handling the rescue with care. At one point, a small stone dislodged, tumbling down the side of the ravine. The cub squeaked, startled, and the lioness flinched, her muscles tightening. But the humans remained calm, steadying themselves in the rope with careful hands. Slowly, the cub was lifted higher, inch by inch, until finally it reached the top. The lioness immediately pressed forward, her paws landing carefully beside the blanket as the cub was unwrapped. She sniffed and licked the little one, her movements full of relief, tenderness, and protective instinct. The cub nuzzled against her, still trembling but safe. She circled around them both, low growls now replaced with soft rumbles, signaling her gratitude and the end of their shared tension. The human stepped back, allowing the lioness to take her cub in her arms, or rather, in her gentle, strong embrace of licks and nudges. It was a quiet, powerful moment of trust and connection, one that none of the humans would ever forget. The lioness had relied on them completely, and they had honored that trust with care and courage.